Let's remind ourselves of the drama. Jesus' resurrection. John and Peter had come to the grave. John stopped at the foot of the grave. Peter went in. John followed in behind him. And John, the beloved one, he believed. Then they ran back to wherever they had come from. I'm not sure what they did then. But Mary stood in the garden, and Mary grieved by herself, and the gardener, who she presumed this person to be, said her by name and called her Mary. She turned and recognized him and said, "Rabboni," teacher. And she believed. And she was changed and transformed forever. Fast forward to today, and we pick up where the gospel ended, where Peter and John have returned to the upper room. They returned to this upper room, this place where they gathered, where they had the Last Supper, where Jesus had washed their feet just days before. Not out of joy and not out of great rejoicing, not out of new beginnings, the understanding that Jesus, their friend, had actually come out of the tomb. Not at all. They were there because they were frightened for their lives. They were frightened that the Jews were going to kick in that door at any given time, and the same fate was going to befall them that befell Jesus. They did not know what their future was going to hold. They had no hope. They didn't know what their lives were about any longer. And yet on that night, Jesus came into their midst. He came into their midst and he said to them, "Calm down. Just calm down. Peace be with you." And he breathed them, ruah is the word. He offered them the gift of the Spirit of God. And they saw the marks in his hands and the mark in his side, and they too believed. But there was someone missing. Thomas. For whatever reason, Thomas wasn't there. Thomas returned some days later, a week later, and he was again there with his friends, and they were trying to explain to him exactly what had occurred. And it didn't matter what they tried to say. Thomas said, "Unless I see it for myself, I do not believe a word you're saying. It's garbage." Jesus came into their midst again and said, "Thomas, touch the hands, touch the marks on my hands and the mark in my side." Thomas did. He saw for himself. He felt for himself. He believed. Today's a big day, and for those of us that are sports fans. Anybody know why?
Opening day.
It's opening day. Come on, Jace. We're all on the even playing field, right? At this moment in time. Yesterday, they were talking to people around the Rogers Center and sticking microphones in their faces saying, "What do you think of the Jays' chances this year?" And most of them said, "They're going all the way." How do you know? Because I believe. How do you know? I know. Do you? Let's give it a couple of months. Especially if it was the Maple Leafs, we'd know better, wouldn't we? Belief. Belief. The definition of belief in the Oxford Dictionary says this. It said, "To believe is to have confidence in the truth, the existence, or the reliability of something, although without absolute proof that one is right in doing so." Belief is to have confidence in the truth, the existence, or the reliability of something, although without absolute proof that one is right in doing so. So every Sunday, I say, this is a place where you don't need to believe to belong. And you know the rest. It's about relationships and community building. It's about making a difference in the world. And if the Spirit of God does something in you, we're going to celebrate that fact. And the reason I say that is because for centuries, the church has sent a message both explicitly and implicitly, that when you come to a community like this, you got to have all your ducks lined up. The churches for centuries sent the message that you got to understand and have your belief structure in place. You now have to know what the doctrines and the dogmas of the churches are, and what the tenets are, and you need to know the Nicene Creed, and you've got to know the books of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Remember those confirmation classes we went to? Absolutely, yeah. Deadly, awful, boring. Didn't believe a word of it. If I didn't believe a word of it, I didn't even understand it. I was 12. Please. How was I expected to believe that? I didn't understand it. So the church has explicitly said this. You know, you need to have your faith a nice, neat little packages. That's not what the church is about. And the reason I know that is because we just heard it. The disciples did not have it all figured out in nice, neat little packages. They were confused. They were all over the map. Each one of them was different. Each one of them came from a different place. Each one of them came to faith, came to belief in a different way. Just like you and I. I know that if I went around the room today and asked each one of you to articulate what you believe, every single one of you would be different from the other. There will be some of you here who would even say, I don't believe. And I do come here because of community and the people and the support and the energy and so on. You all come here for a different reason. But people come to faith, they come to believe in things in different ways. People come to believe things through relationships. The encounters they have with other people. The love that is given, the love that is received. That you believe in humanity. You believe in a power greater than yourself. You believe that the world is essentially a really good place by virtue of the relationships you have and the experiences you have. One of the most profound moments of my life in regards to the belief structure in a deity, a God greater than myself, was the day my eldest son was born. When Christopher was born, I could not articulate how empty I was until his birth filled up the vacuum that existed in me my entire life. It was beyond words. It was beyond my ability to put into words exactly what that love relationship was about. Given and received. So sometimes belief comes to you when you least expect it. Some people come to belief through liturgy. Some people like to go to cathedrals and basilicas where there's smells and bells and pageantry and color and stained glass windows and so on. For them, that speaks of a belief structure, the belief system. Some people come to belief through intellectual pursuits, by reading and examining and being curious and thinking, debating. Some people come to faith and belief through experience, where they've had a transcendent experience of a power greater than themselves. There may have been a miraculous healing, or they might have seen the face of Jesus in their pancake. Or there might have been some incredible moment of their life where they were completely changed. Everybody comes to faith in different ways. Now Thomas is a unique character. Anybody familiar with the personality type indicator called Myers-Briggs? Put up your hand if you've heard of it. Yeah, okay. Most of you. Myers-Briggs, for those of you who don't know, there are 4 categories. There's EI, extrovert or introvert, where you get energy on. The second is intuitive or sensating. The third is thinking or feeling. And the fourth is perceiving and judging. I won't get into all the definitions just now, but let me just say that Doubting Thomas, was probably what is referred to as an ISTJ, an introvert, sensating, thinking, judging person. That is the kind of person that is duty fulfilled. is very responsible and structured. They're focused on the external world. They need to be quiet to recharge the batteries and regain their energy. They have a propensity to like facts and detail and structure and agendas and proof. On the other end of the spectrum is an ENFP. That would be me. I don't need structure. I don't need agenda. I go with the flow. I get my energy from other people. I get my energy externally. And that I have an intuitive capacity to have confidence in something, regardless of what the facts may say, like reading a map in a car. The point is, we all are different. And the necessities of our experience of God are each different and unique. So Thomas was very unique in his experience. John, the beloved disciple, walked into the tomb, saw the shrouds lying on the stone, and believed. The word belief has changed its definition over the centuries. But in the 16th century, Marcus Borg wrote about this. He said that in the 16th century, belief meant to hold dear, to prize, to love, to give one's loyalty to commit one's self to love deeply. But with the Enlightenment period, with scientific enlightenment, with scientific information that started to emerge just shortly thereafter, the definition of belief began to change. And it no longer meant to give our hearts to. It meant belief became more about proof. And without proof, there was no need to believe. So for those of us living in this day and age, that tends to be the kind of definition that most people give credence to in regards to the belief structure. I fall somewhere in between. And it doesn't matter to me whether or not the Shroud of Turin was real or not. Anybody know what the Shroud of Turin was? The Shroud of Turin was the shroud that Jesus was allegedly wrapped in, that was found in the tomb, and for centuries it was kept and believed to be one of the greatest and most magical relics in the history of Christianity. And then some years ago, a couple of decades ago, it was carbon dated and discovered that it was only as recent as the 13th century. And even though it was dated to the 13th century, there are still people who need to believe the Shroud of Turin is real. I don't need to. Some of you may need to, but it doesn't matter, because we all get there in a different way. One of the most profound movies that came out just in recent years was a movie in the, I think 2010-11 called Heaven is Real. It's a true story about a young boy. His name was Colton Burbo. Anybody heard about this movie? Colton was 5 years old. Sorry?
I've read the book.
Yeah. Colton was a 5-year-old boy who had an appendix. His appendix exploded in him 4 or 5 days before his parents got into the hospital. He was in critical condition. He was on the verge of death, and he had a near-death experience. As a 5-year-old boy, after he recovered, he began to tell stories and to recite things that he could not have known. Like the fact that his mother had a miscarriage, and Colton had said he had met his second sister in heaven. And his mother had never told him. And she asked, how do you know? And Colton responded, because she told me. And he commented about meeting his father's grandfather, called Papa. And his father showed him a picture of him when he was old, and his son Colton said, no, that's not him. And so he's too old. And his dad showed him another picture of his grandfather as a young man. He goes, yes, that's him, because nobody's old in heaven. And there are stories that go on and on and on, great controversy about it. But the point being is that this was the definitive moment that converted the parents to have them understand fully that heaven was real. Does it matter? Do those profound kinds of practical, quantifiable experiences make a difference? For some of us, yes. For some of us, no. I think believing is like jumping in a lake. For some of us, we will run off the end of that dock, having never been there before, not giving a care about what's at the other end, not knowing what's at the bottom, not knowing how deep it is, just going for it because it's hot and I want to cool off. Others of us might need a nice ladder that walks us gradually to the bottom of the lake, and we'll carefully and tenderly put our foot in the water to see, A, how cold it is, and then what's on the bottom. Are there stones or is it muddy? What am I going to experience when I put my foot in there? I need to know. Others of us aren't going to go in at all. But it doesn't matter, because we all have choices and ways of getting into the water. We all have different ways of coming to faith. We all have different ways of believing in something that is greater than ourselves. And what this Easter season is about is understanding that the experience of the resurrection of Jesus was something that transformed the world, and by virtue of that transformation, transforms us. If we just open our hearts to the Spirit of God. We see faith in different ways and different times. It's also not static. It changes in our lifetime. There are the good moments of life where our belief is strong and our faith is concrete. And there are the times when we are more like Doubting Thomas and ask questions and challenge the tenets by which we have been raised. So it is my hope and prayer that as we continue this journey through the Easter season, that we may challenge ourselves to think and to give thanks for the gift of belief, the gift of faith, and hope upon hope, that we grow in strength to understand that the risen Christ is here for us to be transformed in all that we do in our lives. Thanks be to God.